Hi, I'm Michael Patterson, and we've been talking about better brains by design, what we can do to influence the plasticity of our brains to actually make them stronger, more vibrant, make our minds better capable of dealing with the challenges of life so that we can actually thrive as we get older. And what I want to focus on now is evolution and evolutionary psychology, and this an interesting concept that has important implications for the way we go about doing the strategies that we've been talking about in this design process. So let me go through the evolutionary argument, if you will, and see where that comes out. When human beings first started to differentiate themselves as a species from the chimpanzees, one of the major things that happened is we began to assume an upright stance. Chimpanzees and great apes pretty much go around on all fours. They do this knuckle walk. Their back doesn't have the curves that allow for people to stand upright. One of the things that happened as we assumed this upright stance was that our hips got narrower than other primates. So a chimpanzee's hips are much wider. Human beings' hips are much narrower. Further implication of this is that in women, the birth canal got much narrower. Now, all of this was happening at the same time that brains were getting bigger. The human brain was expanding because we were developing all this creative capacity for thinking and language and so on. So this created a problem. You had babies with conceivably bigger brains trying to get through a birth canal that was narrower and narrower. So the solution, if you can call it that, evolution doesn't really say, oh, let me figure out a solution to this, but it's through trial and error. The solution that came about was that human beings' brains do not develop until after they get outside of the womb. They stay relatively small. Our brain and our body actually does not develop very much until after we're out of the womb. And you think most other animals, this is not the case. Most other animals, a major portion of the development happens while they're in the womb. They're born and they kind of shake themselves off and they get up and they go prance about. Human beings are born dependent. We're very vulnerable. We are almost helpless when we are born because all of this development of our big brains has to happen when we're out of the womb, and that means that it has to happen in response to what's going on in the environment. We learn from our experience outside of the environment. So this has two very important implications that are important to our discussion about strategies and designing better brains. One is this focus on socialization. Because we are born so helpless, and we are helpless for arguably a decade, 15 years. Some parents argue that their children are helpless until age 40 or 50. But because of that, we needed to rely very heavily on the help of others. Many of our primate relatives, the chimps, the mother holds on to the infant all the time, never lets anybody touch the infant because they're afraid they're going to kill it. In human beings, mothers give their infant children over to alloparents. They're called other parents, whether that's a father or a sister or even just another person of the tribe or your neighbor, a trusted person. And we share in the raising of children, and we share in the development of the human brain as we're going forward. This is why socialization is so very important to our whole mode of operation. So when we talk about the domains of well-being, health, self, and others, this others area, this socialization, is incredibly important because of this whole evolutionary track that we've been on. The other important aspect of it, which I've referred to, is that this whole need for development outside of the womb, That means that the human brain is constructed in such a way that development happens all of the time outside of the womb. And it gives us the opportunity to continue to grow no matter what age we are. Many other animals have a growth period that extends up until puberty. And then that growth of their brain and the growth of their bodies and so on pretty much stop. That's not true with human beings. Our growth progresses for great periods of time. And this is why the health self, the self area is very important, because we have the capability of development throughout our lives. If we truncate that, if it becomes cut off, then we're sort of losing that potential that has been built into us as human beings. So just want to give that historical evolutionary context of why personal development and social engagement are so important and need to be built into our strategies to design better brains for longevity.